Hey guys, Izzy here, back with another video, and today I wanted to go ahead and talk about a topic that's not really common, but I've seen it enough to where I actually kind of want to talk about it. It's been living rent-free in my mind for quite a while, and I figured might as well record a video about it and maybe clear out some doubts, I don't know. But basically, today we're going to be tackling the topic that is, has Warframe changed so much that it's gone too far from what Warframe actually is? I think that was a little bit too long, but you kind of get the gist, right? I've seen a couple of people mention the fact that Warframe has changed so much that it's kind of lost its either touch or just the fact that it just doesn't feel like Warframe anymore. And to a certain extent, I can definitely, kind of get behind some of these topic, or not this topic, but thought. But at the same time, I really can't, since most of the time, at least for my experience, and again, I'm gonna try to recall as much as possible, but these, I guess, have been kind of my experiences with these types of topics and what they're followed up with. Typically, whenever you see someone talk about this in particular, they mention the fact that Warframe has changed too much because of things like Archwing. Now, Archwing was one of the first things that was implemented into the game that was excessively different from what we know of Warframe in terms of gameplay, of course. But to a lore perspective, it definitely does make sense for Archwings to exist. And of course, mentioning Archwings, will also be talking about Railjack, which was another big step in how Warframe is played. Now, Archwing and Railjack kind of go hand in hand when it comes to the gameplay. They're pretty much similar to what they are, and they also kind of go hand in hand to belonging in a way to the lore of Warframe. Yeah. Like, the reason as to why I say this is because, I mean, while some people state, well, Warframe was about space ninjas, what's going on with these fucking ships and shit? Well, it makes sense for, them to not just focus on the ninja part, but also embrace the space part. Our ninja boys or ninja girls or whatever cannot by any means travel through space by their own. Obviously, we of course have our own little ship that takes us places, but they aren't exactly capable of combat. So how exactly did you think that the Warframes were battling the sentients in space? It wasn't by throwing rocks at them, that's for sure. They were using Archwings and Railjacks. I mean, I would think this is somewhat common sense, especially if you played through the second Dream and also Nata, and you saw the enormous body of fucking Hunhao, the size of a fucking building. So I would imagine that, by that moment you would think, well, it kind of makes sense that we have Archwings and that we now have Railjacks, because how else would we actually tackle these humongous creatures? And not just those, but of course, oh, sorry about that. Not just those, but also the Murax. Because, again, like I said, it just doesn't make sense for anyone to actually believe that our tiny little Warframes would damage these humongous fucking creatures. And of course, I know for a fact that our Warframes are excessively strong, but I don't think to the degree of being able to absolutely destroy a building-sized monster. So, yeah. So that's of course one of the two of the things that mainly I see associated with this type of topic, and I honestly cannot think of, any reasonable not solutions, any reasonable reason, I guess, for you to actually believe that that would be the case. But, it exists. So, yeah. Archwing and Railjack, yeah, definitely makes sense in a lore perspective and definitely belong in the world of Warframe. Now, moving on to like one that I can kind of get behind if you really aren't paying attention to the lore itself of Warframe, because this isn't something that's really, plastered in your face like the humongous size of a fucking sentient. And this would be the necromechs. Now, necromechs are weird in a sense that if you really didn't pay attention to the story of the necromechs, the quest, or just in general aren't following up with what the lore of Warframe is, you're going to see necromechs as an incredibly unnecessary part of Warframe. Now, to an extent, people that believe that, of course, necromechs are kind of redundant because of the fact that we have Warframe typically think the same thing about Archwing and Railjack, where they kind of feel it's a little bit redundant to have Railjack as well as Archwing, and to some extent, again, I don't really believe that's the case, because they have their own usage. Archwings are for the Warframe specifically to travel through space, and the Railjacks are to, of course, maneuver with several of the crew inside them. So, well, pause on that one, I'm sorry. You know what I mean. Anyways, necromechs serve a very good purpose in the lore of Warframe, not just moving forward, but also because previously these were basically what Warframes were before they were even Warframes, and that kind of confused me in a whole different way. But basically, necromechs were what Warframes were before. Yeah, before Warframes were even Warframes, necromechs existed, and they were what they were used for. Of course, Warframes came along and they were the improved product, and obviously necromechs really didn't get improved on because there wasn't any reason to improve on necromechs, because we already had the next best thing, which was the Warframes. Now, to a lore perspective, yes, necromechs absolutely make sense. There have been mentions in multiple codex entries and just in general in the lore of Warframe that there were previous attempts at making Warframes before the final products were even placed. In fact, one of them was even Umbra, so we already know for a fact that there were things that were being experimented on that led to the creation of Warframes. So, to a gameplay perspective, necromechs aren't too much of a difference from Warframes, but they have some significant change or difference to them, enough to warrant them to be their own thing. Necromechs really don't need to be in a same slot as a Warframe because they don't move like one. They're very sluggish, they're very tanky, they're very healthy, not healthy, sorry. They have huge health bars and their abilities work very different. Now, I don't specifically remember the name of the sword one, but for example, Boydrig, it does not have any particularly special abilities other than the fact that it does use the arsenal that it has at its disposal. For example, it turns itself into a fucking turret. The other one that I really can't mention is, or I can't, not that I can't mention, it's just the fact that I can't really remember the name and I'm not gonna look it up right now, but basically, this one has a sword and also has a shield, and its abilities kind of revolve around that. It has, its sort of exalted blade, but it's not really an energy-based blade, it's just a blade that it fucking has, as to the same thing as its shield, where it's something that he has tied to his body, so they use it as their ability. Of course, this does drain energy because these things are operated by void energy by the Tenno. Now, it is unclear for me, at least for what I was able to research in regards to this, if these were used by the Orkin themselves, if they were able to actually harness the power of a necromech, or if it was explicitly just the Tenno. I'm assuming that it was the latter. It was definitely just the Tenno that were able to maneuver these things, but to me, it's kind of unclear, and I really didn't find a clear answer onto this. So yeah, just keep that in mind, I guess. But yes, again, for these, I can definitely understand why some people might feel these alienate in a way the Warframe gameplay, but at the same time, it really doesn't. it makes sense for them to be in the game. It makes sense for a lower perspective, and it makes sense for them to be added in the game because they were pretty much introduced, well, not introduced, but used for in the event Scarlet Spear, I believe it was called, where the sentients were able to actually disable warframes, and these served as the next best thing because they didn't really make technology in order to disable the necromechs, because by that time I believe they were either unaware of their existence because these didn't make it to the final fight of the sentients, or this was so out of the realm of possibilities to them for them to be using something so outdated that they didn't think about a way to actually disable these golems. Maybe there's also the fact that maybe these cannot be disabled by normal means from sentience, the same way that the warframes were disabled in Scarlet Spear. But that's kind of me theorizing. But yes, they were used in a very cool way in the story wise, and I wish they had a bigger play in the New War, because I believe they had a lot of potential to kind of play around the fact that, well, these were just the original warframes, and kind of play around that. But that's for probably a different video of me talking about the New War. I'm not gonna go over it in this time. However, that kind of goes through most of it. The only other thing that I guess I've seen tied to this type of topic where people feel like Warframe has changed too much to the point where it's no longer Warframe is the multiverse. Now, the multiverse in Warframe has been addressed multiple times throughout the game, but very specifically has been addressed when Plains of Eidolon was released and we were introduced to the Quill Onco, where he actually confirms that there is a multiverse of different possibilities of your Tenno actually, kind of deciding on different things. And to a way, this actually kind of hints at the fact that yes, there was a timeline where the Tenno didn't actually make it out of the Saruman, which is where the Drifter actually comes from. So in a way, I can understand this one as well, since this one is not too much in your face. However, if you do kind of pay attention to the world around you in Warframe, you'll probably see that yes, this was a possibility, and it is something that is being played around now a lot more than it was previously. The Quill Onco confirmed there were multiple instances of Tenno making decisions. So basically every decision that your Tenno, sorry, I keep saying Warframe, that your Tenno makes either creates a dimension or a multiverse or timeline, whatever, that is of the decision that you made and the one that you didn't make and the one that you're about to make. So kind of confusing, yes, multiverse and time travel, I guess is fucking confusing as hell. But it is something that people have said that has alienated the Warframe franchise, but again, I don't really believe that this would alienate or feel out of place in Warframe, especially because of the fact that, well, we're playing with space ninjas and space and time kind of go hand to hand in a way, and especially if we have a place called the Void, which is basically devoided or just deprived from its time and space. It's kind of like this hole in the universe or whatever. So yeah, anyways, that one feels kind of self-explanatory if you have followed up the story of Warframe, but for a lot of people that haven't, yeah, it can feel like it's kind of out of place. But to be honest, it just makes sense for Warframe to want to play around with time travel, not time travel specifically, but multiverses in general, especially when there's so many Tenno out there, and this is a multiplayer game, so kind of kind of explains a little bit, But yeah, anyways, as for the last one that I could recall, and again, if you guys have any topics that you've seen tied to this specifically, let me know in the comments, regardless of how lame it might be. If it's something that you've seen previously. I would love to hear it and kind of, I don't know, dig into why that's actually the case. But anyways, the last one would be certain warframes. And when I say, I guess certain warframes, I mean like themed warframes. I'm specifically talking about warframes like Caliban, and I can't actually even remember the name right now of the other one. Revenant. Sorry, I literally had it in my mind for a moment and it just went away. Revenant is another warframe that I see typically because of the fact that, well, if you're not really paying attention to the lore, you just play through like the quest just to get the warframe. You might think to yourself, well, why the hell do we have an Eidolon warframe? That makes no fucking sense. And to some extent, I actually do agree a bit there. Now, the reason as to why I don't agree, or I do agree to some extent with this, is because while, they're warframes and they're Eidolon made, and also Caliban is made out of sentient, or is a sentient warframe hybrid. One thing that I did read in the wiki stated that they are not affected the same way as other sentient or Eidolons are from void damage. And that's really interesting, honestly, because if these two warframes are actually made out of Eidolon or sentient pieces, then it would make sense to some extent that they are vulnerable to not just void energy or void damage, but just in general the presence of the void, so they're not able to actually step inside the void. And it's kind of curious because this isn't really something that gets addressed in the game, and it makes sense in a way that it's not addressed, because I mean, why would you want to make your warframe unusable and fucking void? But at the same time, in a lore's perspective, it kind of makes sense for people to not really understand why these warframes even exist. And to an extent, I feel like Caliban is a big one, because of the fact that it's not very well explained why he even exists. I had to look up the information, and I might have missed this on the new war. I don't really remember, but I went back into my playthrough and I could not find a mention of Caliban, and again, maybe I missed this entirely. However, I had to look up the information for Caliban, and basically Caliban is a warframe hybrid sentient, obviously what I mentioned previously, but he was actually used by Era as a weapon. And I find this extremely fucking interesting for something that I feel wasn't even expanded upon in the new war. This could have been something that they could have used as maybe a boss fight in some sort of way, not just the Archons, but also have a showdown against the hybrid sentient warframe themselves, Caliban. So I kind of feel like that was kind of a missed opportunity, and to some extent I feel like we should definitely get some more lore of Caliban, maybe a quest, because it would make sense, right? It's a very interesting topic, an interesting theme, an interesting concept for a warframe that was actually used by the sentients themselves to actually, fight against the warframes in general. It's just I believe it was a cool topic. I don't know, maybe it's just me, but it does kind of tilt me, the fact that he doesn't actually have like a quest for himself, and there's not mentions of him in the new war. So yeah, but yep, that's pretty much it. Yeah, that was pretty much it. Off the top of my head, I can't really think of another thing that gets mentioned, other than, of course, other themed warframes like Direlli, which I honestly feel like I kind of understand, but at the same time I don't, because they do have some explanation to exist. And the only thing that I would argue is warframes that don't really have any lore and were just introduced into the game without any real explanation. totally looking at you, Garuda, which I have no fucking idea where you came from. There's no fucking lore at all, even though it was promised previously. Kind of tilts me the fact that we haven't really received any lore for you. But with that being said, that's where I'm gonna end the video today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. It was a bit longer than I was actually anticipating, but it's also a topic that was living rent-free in my mind, and I know this isn't really probably the most interesting topic to really talk about, but I just really wanted to talk about it myself, and I guess share it with you guys. If you guys enjoyed, please leave a like and subscribe. I really do appreciate it. And of course, if anything, I will be uploading more Warframe videos by next week, because this weekend I will more than likely be playing Scarlet and Violet. Once, of course, I do complete the game, I will definitely share my initial thoughts on that game as well, because I am absolutely hyped and will cry if this game actually disappoints me in some sort of way, which I feel like it's kind of impossible, but I really want to be, I really do want to believe that this game is going to, blow me away. But anyway, guys, thank you guys so much for tuning in. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, and I'll see you guys on the next video. Thank you. Goodbye. Peace.